Hi, we're here at the AMA Restoration Shop in Muncie, Indiana. This is part of the AMA's National Headquarters Complex. We're going to take a look at some how-to features today on a ready-to-fly or almost ready-to-fly aircraft. The very first thing we want to take a look at on any aircraft is the battery system and the charger. While the battery's on charge, we're going to go ahead and start into the aircraft itself. All of the aircraft come with fastener systems. Most of them are a socket or a screwdriver type. So we start up at the nose of the aircraft. We check for any type of a loose bolt. And believe me, there can be loose bolts. These come across usually on a ship, and they come from far distances. Check the bolts that hold the engine in place. Pop the spinner off of the propeller system on the engine. Check the nut and the fastener system there. Muffler, the same thing. Be sure your bolts are tight. Coming on back in the aircraft, we want to take a look at the servos. Check the tightness of the fasteners. Be positive that the screws in the middle of the servo themselves are held down tight. Take a look at the clevises. The clevises, for those folks that are new, are a small plastic device that connects up in the aircraft on the servo arm and ends up back on the tail, either the rudder or the elevator assembly, or in the case of the wing, the aileron assembly. Be positive that those are snapped tight, and it's a good idea to take a small piece of fuel tubing, cut it off about an 1/8 inch length, and put it on top of the clevis itself, slide it in place. Once we've gone through that area and made sure that all of the fasteners are tight, we want to check the actual functionality or operation for the tail of the aircraft. Get your transmitter. We're assuming now at this point that you've had it on charge. Transmitter on, receiver on, and we're going to go ahead and check the tail surfaces. Before we check them with a level, we want to make sure that the direction of the tail surfaces are correct. Elevator should be back stick on the transmitter. Picture the floor of a full-scale aircraft as the transmitter plane. Right stick is elevator up. Yes, elevator is going up. Down. Aileron, which I'm not going to show you here, but I'll describe it, is right stick, should give you right aileron. Left stick should give you left aileron up. Going to the tail, left is rudder, also steering on the nose wheel. Right is rudder, again steering on the nose wheel. Finally, on a 4-channel aircraft, which this is, throttle control is the left stick from low all the way up to high. That takes the carburetor from its lowest or idle position up to the high end. Now that we've gone through the direction of the control surfaces, we want to check the control surfaces for how level they are. Anything in your shop, like a level or a flat piece of wood, is fine. You don't have to go out and buy a special tool. We take the level. In this case, we've got a square. We put it back here on the tail of the aircraft. And all we're comparing is the horizontal flying surface or horizontal stab to the level of the elevator itself. In this case, we can see that the elevator is level. We're set. Do the same thing on the vertical stab. We put it on the vertical stab and compare how it goes across the rudder. Again, it looks good. If it doesn't check that it's level, there are 2 areas for adjustment. The first one is electromechanical, and you can do that right from the transmitter. The trims on the transmitter will make the adjustment. I'm going to exaggerate these on the elevator and pull it all the way up. You can see there that the elevator has gone up. We wouldn't put it that far, but let's say we were off a 1/16th or a 32nd of an inch. We'd make an adjustment with the electromechanical trim on the transmitter to get the elevator surface and the other surfaces where we want them in terms of being level. Once we've done that, it's a good idea to go back, turn the radio off, turn off the receiver and the transmitter, save your batteries, and go back and mechanically adjust those surfaces. You can change that by the quick link or adjusting screw up in the fuselage itself that connects to the servo, or you can make the adjustments back on the tail. There's another quick link back there. It snaps off and adjusts and turns. After we've taken a look at the control surfaces, which we've done, and set them, we want to take a look at the engine system. First thing to check on the engine system are the carburetor settings. On Mode 2, which is the most popular mode of flying in the United States, we'll repeat that the throttle is on the left stick. Low is down, all the way up is high. So we want to take a look at the carburetor and check for basically 3 positions. The first one is, with it on low stick, we look into the barrel of the carburetor, and we should have between a 1/16th of an inch and 3/32 of an inch opening. That'll put the engine in about a 2,500 to 3,500 RPM range. Again, the adjustments are made in 1 of 2 ways. One is adjust it electronically with the transmitter, put your trim all the way up, and set your setting at idle so that we've got our 16th to 3/32 of an inch. Once you've done that, or if you don't have enough adjustment range on the transmitter to get there, make your change or your mechanical adjustment through the push rod system and the quick link. Now we want to check high speed. Again, with trim up on high, bring your transmitter stick all the way up. Check the barrel position of the carburetor. It should be all the way open, but you shouldn't hear any binding or see any binding and hear any type of a buzz. If you do, again, mechanically adjust from your throttle servo up to the carburetor itself. Once we've got that, we run it from low stick to high stick, make sure that we don't see any binding on the carburetor, and we're set there. Now we're ready to take a look at the fuel system itself. Almost every aircraft today comes with two fuel lines installed. The first one is the main or carburetor main line, which is this one. The second one is normally a pressure line, which hooks onto the muffler system itself, pressurizes the fuel tank, and forces fuel from the fuel tank into the engine. It's a good idea to blow through the main line, the one that comes off the carburetor nipple, and feel with your finger that you're feeling air coming out the overflow line. That assures you that during shipping and assembly where the aircraft was manufactured, that the clunk or the pickup system inside the tank isn't stopped, it isn't pushed over, it isn't bent. That assures that your fuel is going to flow basically. Check the settings on the main needle valve and on the idle needle valve. The main needle valve is the large one that comes off the side of the carb. They'll usually be somewhere between 1.5 to 3 turns open, depends on the brand of engine, and the idle setting will usually be between 1.5 and 2 settings from fully closed in either position. Once we've done that, we want to go ahead and go to the balance system of the airplane. Now we've got our wing on. At this point, the last check with the wing on relative to the radio is check your aileron surfaces, make sure, look underneath, that you don't hear any kind of grinding, any kind of restrictive noise inside the fuselage. So again, go through the surfaces. Elevator, which is your up and down, left and right rudder, and now the ailerons, which we just put on. Right stick is right aileron up, left stick is left aileron up, and you want to work these kind of quickly and listen to them. That sounds good. I can hear it here. I don't hear any kind of noise or any kind of restriction inside the fuselage that would indicate a problem with the gear. The next thing we want to take a look at is the shrink wrap covering. The key to the procedure to taking the wrinkles out is to keep the gun moving. Get it over the surface that has the wrinkles in it and begin to move it like this. You go back and forth with it. As you do, you're watching for the wrinkles to disappear. They should shrink down tight, pull up, and you'll see just the smooth surface. But the key again is keep the gun moving. Don't allow it to stay in any one spot. Once you see the wrinkles are pulled out, you can turn the gun off. You're done. Now that we've finished shrink wrapping the covering on the aircraft, we want to take a look at a very important area, and that's the balance. There are two areas we want to look at there. The first is the fore to aft balance, which is from the nose to the tail. The second is the lateral balance on the wing, which is from one wingtip to the other. You're going to want to have a friend come over to give you a hand. Take the aircraft, look at your manual on it, and they will typically describe that about 1/4 of the way back from the leading edge is the point that you want to lift up the aircraft to check the fore to aft balance. So we're going to have our friend grab the tip for us here, go underneath, and lift the aircraft up. You can see we're just fine there, slightly nose down. One other thing I want to mention is you always check this with the tank dry. You don't want fuel in it, it has to be dry. Now we're going to check the lateral balance. Turn the aircraft so that your helper can get underneath the tail, you get underneath the nose, and lift it up far enough to see which wingtip is light. In that case, we can see that the left wingtip is light. What we want to do is get some small brads or nails, insert them into the tip of the wing that's the light tip, may take quite a few, push them in far enough that you can put a drop of fast drying glue over the tip, and you're done. The next area that we want to check is the radio equipment's range check. This is very important because the only control we have between the aircraft and us on the ground is the radio transmitter and the receiver that resides in the bird itself. Most manufacturers recommend 90 to 100 feet or approximately 30 paces of range. What does range mean? That means that you have solid control of the aircraft and its surfaces as you walk back range checking it. To do that, pull the antenna up one section, which is approximately 8 to 10 inches. Begin to work a control surface. It doesn't matter which one, but work it in a steady, smooth, definable manner like this. Walk back from the aircraft. As you get to the point where it goes out of range, which is your check for the distance that you've acquired, the surface will begin to go like this. it'll begin to wiggle and it will be uncontrollable. Basically, you don't have control of the surface at that point. When you hit that point, note how far you've walked back, put that in your logbook, and it's going to be about 90 to 100 feet. And then each time you range check your aircraft, make sure you've got that type of distance. Once you're done with that, you know your radio's fine. We're almost there. We want to start the aircraft next. It's very important that you have a helper or one of the commercially available restraint systems that you can buy from your local hobby shop or your mail order. The key point is have the aircraft firmly attached or held in place while you start it with your starter, or if you happen to start it by hand, that's fine too. But the key point is the aircraft is held solid. Don't allow it to move. Make sure that you always stay in front of the arc of the propeller or behind the arc of the propeller. It's another safety issue. Your engine's running. We're now ready to take the aircraft out to the runway. Very important, you never taxi the aircraft from the pits out to the runway. Always have your helper, or you carry it and your helper brings your transmitter out to the runway, ready for takeoff. At this point, if an instructor is available, we highly recommend that you have an instructor give you a hand on your first flights. It'll save you all kinds of problems, allow you to get up and have fun with the aircraft. And remember, a lot of these procedures apply to your pre-flight checkup as well.